Let me tell you something. Every case of eminent domain that I have ever seen picks on the poorest of the poor.
Good morning, Mr. Stroop. We're here in Franconia at your home, and that's because we heard Northern Pass engineers were trespassing on your land in Sugar Hill.
That's right. I was on the land. I saw them walking, and at first they made small talk about my sugaring operation and the lines and whatnot. And I asked them what they were doing. They said they were from public service. I asked them for some identification, and they gave me a card. They said they had no identification, but if I called the number on the card, they would identify them. And at that time, I looked at the card, and it was from Northern Pass. It was a man and a woman. The woman had kind of a fly fishing vest on, and you know, they had the surveying tape and whatnot.
Were they trying to look like something they weren't?
No, I pretty much could tell what they were doing by what they had with them. They walked right by my no trespassing sign that specifically said, "Representatives of Northern Pass take notice."
So you had a no Northern Pass trespass sign specifically for them, and they walked right past it.
They did. When I asked them why they walked past it, they said that they felt they had the right to.
They felt they had the right.
Yep.
Let's get back to these people that you caught on your land. What did you do?
I pointed to the other side of the sign and I said, "Please step over there." And that was actually when they said they thought that they had the right to be there. And I said, "No, you don't."
It was one of you against two of them, and they wouldn't leave. Is that correct?
They did back across the line.
And then what?
We talked a bit more. They said that they actually didn't have to come down through there. They turned to leave. As they were walking away, I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "No one from Northern Pass is going to be on my land without my permission, right?" And they said, "Right."
So what did they mean? They were going to access your land from a different direction, or from the sky, or what did they mean by that?
They were surveying for vernal pools, which is quite, you know, time sensitive, because once the vegetation grows up, it's less likely to find signs in vernal pools.
Well, what do they care about a vernal pool?
Exactly. They're going to put the line through, over, or whatever the vernal pools. They'll do whatever they want. They are Hydro Quebec, Northern Pass, and they're going to do what they want.
So, how do you feel about that?
Powerless. I think the senators need to answer to the people, not Northern Pass, PSNH, Gary Long.
Mr. Stroop, I heard there were helicopters flying over your land along the path where Northern Pass wants to put the towers.
It was February, March. We were up working on the sugar lines, and we did see a helicopter fly over. So as far as anyone saying that they don't fly over, they definitely do.
I mean, what really struck me as odd when we attended one of the meetings down in Concord was a representative or a lobbyist, whatever she is.
Oh, you're talking about the May 19th Judiciary hearing meeting with the Senate.
Indeed. I am indeed. When I actually heard somebody standing there testifying.
That was Donna Gamache.
That was Donna Gamache, saying that they aren't flying helicopters other than to, you know, check maintenance check lines, whatever you want to call that. But as far as the helicopters go, this past year was the first time I've seen it. He's in the woods much more than I am cutting trees down, but it was just shocking. And then to have this lady say that that doesn't happen, I felt like, oh my God, I'm seeing UFOs.
These are some of the signs that I have posted to keep the Northern Pass people off my land. I'm a business owner with about a 50-mile radius of Franconia is what we service. There's a lot of people this line will affect. Even if this line doesn't affect you with the current eminent domain laws, you could be next. They could want to take your property for a line. There are other lines in the plans, and don't think there aren't.
As you know, Northern Pass wants to take people's land by eminent domain. And, what do you have to say about that?
Well, that was when I first got notified of this back in December of 2010. The first question out of my mouth was, is there going to be any eminent domain used in this? You know, everybody's getting concerned about this, whether it be in Concord, which is where the there's going to be new right-of-ways that would be built if this is approved. People in the Lake Sunapee region, which is where I live, a lot of people there are very upset about it. I'm hearing from people from Lebanon all the way down to Portsmouth on this. I'm hearing from people in Chester, which is nowhere near any of these proposed routes. I'm hearing from people in Salem. I'm hearing from people all over the state that are just disgusted at what this will do, and for a lot of them, eminent domain is a huge concern.
So you keep bringing up eminent domain. Is Hydro Quebec trying to buy any of this land, or they just want to grab it?
Not from what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing from people is, first of all, a lot of the property owners that I've talked to have not even been approached by anybody from Northern Pass, Hydro Quebec, PSNH, none of that stuff. They're finding out by reading about it in the newspapers, hearing it on the radio, looking at the maps online, which have since changed so that people can't easily figure out where their properties are on these maps. But that's how a lot of people have been finding out, and they are simply furious. And the state Senate made that point perfectly clear when they were voting to send House Bill 648 out to study committee. Even the people who supported sending that to study committee said that Northern Pass folks have gone about this completely wrong, and we're still seeing echoes of that today.
So what I'm hearing is a landowner could lose all his land and not find out about it except through the news.
They will probably find out about it when they get the certified letter in the mail saying your land is going to be taken. That's probably what will happen. Although the folks at the utility companies will say, well, we tried working with the landowners and we just couldn't come to an agreement. What they'll do is they'll notify the landowners about a week before they go for the eminent domain proceedings and say, oh, well, we tried to negotiate with them, but they never got back to us. That's probably what had happened.
Oh, Bulldog, this is what I'm hearing also. I haven't met one landowner who found out directly that their land would be impacted, except maybe by a real estate agent knocking on the door offering $400 for an option to walk the land for 3 years and another $400 to own it.
I talked to a gentleman in Deerfield who found out about the project in exactly that same fashion. He had somebody from his town come to his door and say, we'd like to look at this right-of-way that's right behind your property here. And he says, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, if you just sign these papers, a right of entry agreement, for the next 3 years, we'll give you $400 and you can, we'll just come across your property and, do some looking around. Well, he took it to a lawyer, none of the lawyers that I've ever heard of before in any of this debate, and the lawyer says, you do not want to sign that thing. So he immediately said no. Well, he's still being pestered to this very day from folks in Northern Pass, and they are pitting neighbor against neighbor in Deerfield right now on this. The guy says he's not going to sell his land, he's not going to sign a right of entry agreement, and so what does that leave? They're going to have to take the property by eminent domain if they are indeed going to do this.
So have there been any offers of real money for this right-of-way or to purchase property, or is it all threats?
Not from what I've heard right now. I haven't heard so many threats, in any of the points below Plymouth, so I don't know. I know I've heard Attorney Bob Baker, when he testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, he did talk about those threats, veiled, plain, or otherwise, and I continue to see them.
That was May 19th, the May 19th hearing.
Yes, exactly. He stated very clearly the threats that were being made against landowners. Here, let me show you where we're going to put the lines. And that is a lot of what I have heard from other stories in the North Country.
So this is an attorney for landowners?
Yes. Well, the opposition group, if you want to call it that, just for the lack of a better term, really is made up of a lot of people, not just the landowners who could be impacted by this, but by everybody across the state who is concerned about this. I did not imagine in my wildest dreams, when I first heard about this right before the new year, that I would be spending as much time as I do. And there hardly is a day that goes by that I don't talk about it on the radio show. And if there's a day that I don't talk about it, people are calling up wanting to talk about it. You know, when I think a lot about these kinds of cases, and this isn't the first time that I have seen the threat of eminent domain used. I've followed a few battles in my time. Even before the Kilo case, there was a case of eminent domain in my town that went very, very badly when I lived in Connecticut.
We're talking about Kilo versus Pfizer Pharmaceuticals in Connecticut.
Well, yeah, versus New London, right?
London.
The Kilo versus New London case, which basically the Supreme Court said that government can take your property for the public benefit, meaning, you know, more taxes, more jobs, and the like, which, of course, you look at that place in Connecticut, and it's just a 90-acre brownfield now because nothing was ever built, and Pfizer's leaving town. And I look at what's transpired since then, and, you know, I've seen some letters to the editor that are quite disturbing, and I still see some comments on some of the discussion boards in some of the online newspapers. And what I don't like is where they say, well, the people who are opposed to this project are so well funded, they just want to keep the tourist traps in their town. That's all they care about is their own money. Let me tell you something. Every case of eminent domain that I have ever seen picks on the poorest of the poor, the people who might just have a little trailer home, who don't own the land that's underneath it, the people who are just the working class, middle class people who do not have a lot of money to fight these kinds of things. That is who they picked on in New London, Connecticut. They picked on a working class community that was perfectly safe. It was not blighted. There was nothing wrong with that community. They didn't even have an ounce of crime, unlike the rest of the city of New London. But here in New Hampshire, I see the people that are affected by this are what I call the little people. These are people that do not have a lot of money to defend in an eminent domain proceeding. They cannot afford to hire lawyers. Some of them are well into their golden years. They're in retirement. They don't have much money to fight. And that's exactly what these folks do, time and time again. And that is to pick on the little guys. And they think they can do that because they've got all the resources in the world. They've got the police powers of the state. They can come in with guns and drag you off your land. But I'll tell you what, people can fight back. I have seen a fight back by middle-class people and working-class folks, because it was done in Baltimore County, Maryland, where the county executive there tried to wipe out an entire middle-class neighborhood in the community of Middle River. Well, the people took the fight to the legislature, and they beat back that project. So it can be done. Don't think just because you don't have the money to do it, you can do it. Our New Hampshire legislature, the House of Representatives, voted overwhelmingly to protect private property owners. And the Senate, we know what happened there. They voted 14-10 to re-refer the eminent domain bill to committee. This is a great example of why the New Hampshire legislature should never be reduced in size. Some people will complain, oh, we got 400 legislators, that's too many. No, this is a perfect example of how the House of Representatives is lobbyist-proof, because 17 lobbyists cannot possibly reach all 400 state reps. But they were able to go after the state senators and scare them. But I'll tell you what, the one thing that all these senators will tell you, they have received a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails, and they cannot respond to all of them. So folks, my encouragement to you, if you are in the line of fire on this Northern Pass project, continue to fight. Continue to call your legislators. Meet up with them. Run into, when you see them in your neighborhood diner, sit down with them. Have a chat. Say, I want just a couple of minutes of your time. Here's who I am. I'm so